27 states have decided they're going to join forces with We the People and push back against the ATF's attempt to change laws in this country unconstitutionally. ATF can't make law, we know that. But before I jump into what went down, I want to thank the sponsor of the video, and that's our friends in Missouri, CMMG. CMMG is offering my viewers 10% savings with code GNG10, and if you happen to buy something that slings freedom before December 20th with that code, you'll get a free mystery box with goodies and parts as well. Braces are back on the menu, so if you're somebody who likes to consume braces, then check them out and save 10% with GNG10. CMMG, thank you for being cool. I have to be coy in how I say things. That's ridiculous. Freedom. But here we are. We're going to talk about 27 states that have decided to push back against the ATF. And then this is regarding their new attempted rule change, the engage in the business of a firearms dealer, which would look to make you and I become federally licensed firearms dealers if we decided to sell one of our items. Say you have 29 Glocks, and you'd like to sell one of your duplicates to somebody. If this rule were to go through, then you would have to become a federally licensed firearms dealer, make the transfer, keep it on your books indefinitely for the rest of your life, keep that record as an FFL. ATF can come inspect your stock, stuff like that. And this letter is pretty darn good the way it's written, and I want to show it to you. And you're going to see one of the friends of this channel, the AG from Montana, Austin Knudsen here, and they're really, really good at pushing back for freedom. Y'all got a good one out there. Check it out. It says the attorneys general for the states of Kansas, Iowa, Montana, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming, and the Arizona State Legislature submit the following public comment to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in response to the request for comments on its proposed rule titled Definition of Engaged in the Business as a Dealer in Firearms. And here we go. Introduction. The Bureau's proposed rule takes the unprecedented step of making any individual who sells a firearm predominantly for profit liable to civil, administrative, or even criminal penalties unless the seller acquires a federal license. The Bureau's definition for sale for profit is itself arbitrary and capricious. Beyond capricious, the proposed rule is capacious. The Bureau's presumptions in support of predominant profit-seeking include when a person 1. Advertises, markets, or otherwise promotes a firearm business. Example, advertises or posts firearms for sale, including on any website, establishes a website for selling or offering for sale their firearms, makes available business cards or tags firearms with sale prices, regardless of whether the person incurs expenses or only promotes the business informally. 2. Purchases, rents, or otherwise secures or sets aside permanent or temporary physical space to display or store firearms they offer for sale, including part or all of a business premises, table, or space at a gun show or display case. 3. Makes or maintains records in any form to document, track, or calculate profits and losses from firearm purchases and sales, or secures or applies for a state or local business license to purchase for resale or to sell merchandise that includes firearms. The proposed rule also presumes a person is a dealer in firearms if he sells or offers for sale firearms and also represents to potential buyers or otherwise demonstrates a willingness and ability to purchase and sell additional firearms. This presumption applies even if the seller only sells one firearm. The Bureau lists very few exceptions to this rule, and even those exceptions paint a disturbing picture. For instance, the proposed rule states that an example in which evidence may rebut the presumption would be the occasional sale, loan, or trade of an almost new firearm in its original packaging to an immediate family member, such as for their use in hunting, without the intent to earn a profit or to circumvent the requirements placed on licensees. That example is not an aberration, but central to the entire proposed rule. The proposed rule expands the definition of earning a profit to be determined by something other than money to include 1. Personal property that includes another firearm or ammunition, 2. A service, 3. Another medium of exchange, or 4. Valuable consideration. In addition, there is no requirement that a firearm actually be sold, only an offer to engage in a transaction. Nor is there any requirement that a person selling a firearm make pecuniary gain. 2. The proposed rule violates the Second Amendment. This overreach is both shocking and unconstitutional. Although long-standing regulations of large commercial enterprises that sell firearms might be consistent with the Second Amendment, that is not what this proposed rule does. This proposed rule seeks to require a license of every individual who sells a firearm for anything the Bureau sees as profit, to include currency, exchange of another firearm, or service. Despite the proposed rule regulating conduct that implicates the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, the proposed rule does not at any point reference the term Second Amendment. This omission demonstrates that there was no attempt by the Bureau to comply with the Constitution. As the Bureau should be well aware, the Supreme Court recently clarified the framework for determining the constitutionality of a law or regulation under the Second Amendment. The court explained that if the Second Amendment covers an individual's conduct, any burden on that conduct is presumptively unconstitutional. The government can overcome that presumption only by showing the regulation is consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. The proposed rule doesn't even attempt to do this. As a starting point, the sale of firearms among individuals for profit is protected by the Second Amendment. The plain text of the Second Amendment protects the rights of the people to keep and bear arms. The core Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms for self-defense wouldn't mean much without the ability to acquire arms. To this end, as many courts have held, the ability to buy a firearm is encompassed in the right to keep and bear arms. Likewise, the ability to sell a firearm to another is also protected. The type of government overreach this proposed rule attempts was among the concerns the founders had at the time the Second Amendment was ratified. In 1774, King George III embargoed all imports of firearms and ammunition into the 13 colonies, which the Americans treated as a plain intent to enslave America. In reaction, the Americans redoubled their efforts to engage in firearms commerce. In 1777, when it appeared the British were poised to win the American Revolution, British Colonel Undersecretary William Knox drafted a plan called "What is Fit to be Done with America" to prevent any future rebellions. In relevant part, the plan stated, quote, "The arms of the people should be taken away, nor should any foundry or manufactory of arms, gunpowder, or warlike stores ever be suffered in America, nor should any gunpowder, lead, arms, or ordnance be imported into it without license." The proposed rule does not give sufficient treatment to this nation's important historical context, and it does not even mention Heller or Bruin. Given that those two landmark cases provide the standard with which all federal and state firearm regulations combined with the stunning overreach of this proposed rule shows that the Bureau has no respect for the Second Amendment rights of the citizens that it tries to regulate. If the proposed rule attempted to apply Heller or Bruin, it wouldn't fail. Nothing in this country's historical tradition of firearm regulation required that every firearm seller register for a license with the federal government. That holds true even if the sale is for a profit. Indeed, given how broad the conduct covered in the proposed rule is, one would be hard-pressed to even find an analogous modern firearm regulation raising serious Bruin concerns. This proposed rule does not come close to passing constitutional muster. The Bureau should understand this and change course immediately. The next section, number 3, is how the proposed rule is arbitrary and capricious. says that it violates the Administrative Procedure Act. It also says it's a sharp departure from the Gun Control Act, which also makes it unconstitutional and illegal. Number 4, the proposed rule is bad public policy. Says the Bureau has decided to criminalize responsible and law-abiding citizens rather than doing its job. That being arresting, investigating, and aiding in prosecuting violent criminals who use firearms to terrorize our communities. The undersigned attorneys general and state legislature agree that violent crime is at unacceptably high levels. Rather than focus on that primary and important objective, this proposed rule seeks to criminalize what should be lawful behavior. While the duty to hold violent criminals accountable largely falls to local prosecutors and judges, the Bureau already has tools at its disposal to help combat this. As an example, 18 U.S.C. 924E provides a 15-year mandatory minimum sentence for any individual who possesses a firearm after accumulating 3 violent felonies or serious drug offenses or both. In addition, 18 U.S.C. 924C provides a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for any individual who carries a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence or drug trafficking offense. These are just some of the laws available for the Bureau to enforce. If the Bureau was serious about combating violent crime, it would focus on enforcing the laws that are already on the books to hold violent criminals accountable for their actions. That would be the type of work that could save lives. Unfortunately, the Bureau has instead targeted innocent people who sell firearms. This is not only unlawful, but wrong, and the Bureau must change course. Conclusion, for these reasons, the Bureau should withdraw this proposed rule. And I will give you a second or two here to pause so you can see the names and the states they represent of the folks who signed this letter. But like these attorneys general and the state legislature said, this is unconstitutional. It is illegal, and it sounds to me that the way they worded this letter, they're prepared to file a lawsuit. That would be my guess. I don't know that yet. But maybe you'll hear something more on that. What do you guys and gals think? We all know that the comment section has closed a couple days ago. We got a ton of people to make comments, and we'll see what the ATF decides to do now. All eyes are on them. For the last 2 rules, obviously are being challenged. The one about braces, which are back on the menu at CMMG, use code GNG10. Also the one on frames and receivers, and the bump stock rule. All their last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 rules are all being challenged in court. And at each level, courts have said this is blatantly unconstitutional on its face. Never mind, you change the way the rule goes through the APA, you violate that too. So will they just double down, the ATF, and just charge forward with their orders from Sleepy Joe Biden and his puppeteers? Or will they pull the rule? Well, they have pulled one rule in recent memory. That was their first attempt at banning pistol braces and stuff like that, but all they did was rewrite it and make it stronger. And then they still violated the APA. Let me know what you guys and gals think down below about this. And if your attorney general was on here, call their office and thank them, because they're putting their keisters on the line doing this. Because once the administration hates you because you're not in step with them, then they make it very difficult for your state, including funding, etc. Look what they're doing to Texas. Ken Paxton is on all these types of letters. They're suing Texas on their suppressor law. They're suing Missouri on their Second Amendment Preservation Act. Like these states are passing laws to protect something that should never need protecting. The Constitution, it's there. It's the rules. It's the rules and regulations, the SOP for this country, standard operating procedure. Yet you have states that just don't care. It's time that the people don't care and fight back and push back. Tell these politicians what you think. If they're on this letter, give them an attaboy. If they're not on this letter, burn the phones down. Get on them. Make them feel the heat. Put pressure on them every step of the way. Appreciate y'all. Be safe. Stay vigilant. Carry a gun to keep you, your friends, your family, your community safe. Consider CMMG. Consider saving with code GNG10. I will see you all on the next one. Take care.